From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factory.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
And this is Conlon.
Tonight we're going to talk about stuff. Ready for time travel, Formula One, and all that other exciting stuff. Let's open out by saying we had one of our most uncomfortable days this year in Michigan on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
With the humidity, temperature was 85, but the humidity was incredibly high. So we had a wet bulb temperature of, I think it was 88.
A what temperature?
It's called a wet bulb. That's what they use at work. It calculates, it takes into account the humidity and the temperature as a factor, and then it gives you a number.
Oh, okay.
At 95, like people that are extremely physically healthy, at 95 wet bulb, they start to die. So we're at 88. You can't shoot paint close to that level, but of course we hung in there. And then when I got out in my car, of course, because I can control my car through my phone, I just turned everything up full blast, and I got in the car and I was like, why does my whole body feel cold? It's because my clothes were actually, my jeans and everything were soaked in sweat. I was like, oh, this is weird. I came home at 4:45 is when I got home. I ate a little dinner, and by 6 o'clock I was completely out of sleep. I slept all night. I slept 11 and a half hours the next day. Then I went into work and there was a bunch of people missing. It's like, oh, okay. But I didn't realize how uncomfortably humid and hot it was until like a day later, because they were actually checking things. They were like, yeah, we were close to having to turn. Only like 88 or 85 or something, but yeah, it was so humid. And then it rained the next day and all the humidity.
You got all the humidity.
Well, it rained. Yeah, if it rains during the day and sustained rains, and then it gets dark, and then you go into the next day, it's not so bad. But if it rains really hard and then the sun comes back out, then it's awful. But usually that drives the temperature down quite a bit. But yeah, for some reason Monday was particularly gross and terrible. And the rest of the week was pleasant. So it's over. We're into fall now. Summer's gone. Bye, summer. Go away. More than anything. I like how people's work habits change. Though you can tell. It's like, man, I'm having an easy time covering the job today because people are just practically, just barely moving together. They're just like, they're going through the motions, but you can tell it's like they're moving through molasses. It's like, oh, yeah. Just drink gallons of water. It actually got hotter at the other plant. That's when they had to give us like hour-long breaks and stuff. That one summer, I think it was 2017. And they bitched about that. This is fucked up. It's like, well, you can't even shoot paint, so... Because the body shop just like stopped because they couldn't paint cars because the paint would just go on and run down the side.
So like the paint spot doesn't have like its own like environmental control area?
It does, but it can only keep up to so high.
Oh, okay.
Because like the Ford plants in South America, they're all air conditioned. Like they don't even mess around. They just build, but they also have their own power generating facilities too, because they don't have notorious reliable external power grids there. But yeah, they don't even mess around. They build the plants around air conditioning. But the American plants, it's only this hot, like 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, maybe. So you're not going to build a whole air conditioning unit. But yeah, they do have what is it? I forget how it works I know how it works at the other plant. I'm not sure here, but yeah, they have their separate systems, but they can only do so much. then they have to start bringing in the chiller trucks if it's sustained heat. Those are the semis that just have the tubes that just get covered with frost.
Yeah.
They're blowing such cold air, and 10 of those damn things running. It's like, I bet you that's cheap. They have like a diesel engine on the back hooked to these two. There's be an air conditioner front and rear, and a diesel engine in the middle. It looks like it came out of a boat. And they'll start that thing up like, and it's just this huge rumbling. Like 10 feet away, you can barely stand close to it. And yeah, it runs those air conditioners. But yeah, I think nowadays they just stop at a certain point. They're like, this is worthless. I remember when what was it, the Meijer store? Like their whole system failed for their frozen foods and everything, and they brought stuff in to like supplement it, and it couldn't keep up, and so then they were just like marking everything down, like push it out the door before it thaws. And it took them a long time to get guys in there. They had to bring in cranes and replace all the stuff on the roof.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember you went there. They had no frozen food or anything for a long, like a week. Just had guys up there, beep beep, bring a big HVAC unit through the air. It's like, oh wow. But yeah, if it gets so hot, you can't shoot paint. They might have changed that. I know that they say that, and I'm no expert on this, and I don't work in that area of the plant. I'm not an automotive paint engineer. Because they always talk about, we can put hardener and accelerator and stuff in there, but then 5 years later, when somebody's paint just flakes off their car, it's like, they're not going to buy another car from you. Are they getting those deals where they have to repaint like 10,000 cars because customers will bring them in like the paint's just flaking off, and that's expensive. Because painting a car in a plant is cheap because it's just a body rolling down a line with the matching hood and doors. But paying some guy to sand it all down and paint it by hand, that's expensive. I mean, he's only getting paid like $12 an hour, but they'll charge you $10,000 for it for some reason. I don't know why that is, but that's why I never, all the guys, I know guys that have really powerful cars, but all the bodies look like shit. So, like, I'm not paying. Paint job costs more than the engine. It's like, oh, okay.
I just get one of those things, those decals you just like roll on vinyl.
Yeah, that's going a smooth surface. So they can't have like rust and shit. There's a guy who drives around here with one of those Chargers or whatever. It's got like lightning bolts and a whole background. It's one of those vinyl wraps.
Yeah.
And it's like, I thought it was for a business, but this is just this guy's personal car. Just driving it around like that. It's like, yeah, that's like a tattoo you probably regret later on, but it seemed cool at the time. Have lightning car, but now you don't really want to take it off, so you're stuck with lightning car.
This is my identity now.
Yep, this is who I am, like it or not. I just want you just buying that car, but they're like, that's completely not their personality. Just like an older person buying it. Just see some guy get out of it, like you think someone in an Affliction t-shirt's going to be jumping out of that car. It's just some old man. It's like, I got this for a good price.
Regret is a hefty bargaining price.
Yeah. Regret's a powerful tool. Yeah, that's July, hopefully, and that's over now, so it'll still be hot, but that was the one bad day we've had this year. I remember bad weeks before. But it's bad when you just come home and go to sleep and sleep completely through the night.
Yeah.
Wake up because you're just like at the verge of some kind of weird death. And like I said, I drive a forklift. I'm not like lifting axles over my head. I don't know how those people do it.
I remember we did an AT at 29 Palms, and it's like 100 degrees there like every day, but there's no humidity, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
They have like, it's so hot there, they have like misters, they have like picnic tables outside with like big canopies for shade, and there's just these misters just throwing mist everywhere.
Yeah.
And but these one guys had to go, there's like another camp just above it, called Camp Wilson, and that was just like a shithole. There's like almost like it's just like it's like a training area, I guess, but there's like no like there's not a whole lot of infrastructure out there. It's just kind of a place you go to do things.
Oh, okay.
And there's a bunch of guys in the Connex boxes, which are basically like, you know, kind of like semi-trailer boxes, but like smaller.
Yeah.
And like guys had to work in those in like 100 degrees heat. And so they had them in like weird uniforms where like they're down in their like in their like athletic gear and working boots, taking boxes in and out of Connex boxes and like moving shit around and doing inventory just for 8 hours a day, just sweating through their boots. So yeah, so all those guys got like it's called a LOA, letter of appreciation, which is just kind of a little, hey, you did a good job thing.
Thank you for not dying in the desert. I thought it was weird when I found out, like on submarines, like when you're down in the Mediterranean and stuff, and the hot, like those guys operate submarines, or they used to. This is the diesel battery era. They just be in underwear.
Yeah.
The water is so warm, the submarine gets so hot that you just had no option. You just basically shirtless with underwear, driving a submarine around. What, you just pass out. Now, I think the modern ones are all probably acclimatized. I don't know. For $1 billion a crack, they better see in there.
Well, I mean, that's how they're portrayed in the movies.
Yeah, the movies, they look cool. Never seen a real one. The ones I've been in, they're like the decommissioned ones.
Yeah, World War II ones.
This is like, I could never do this. This is too small. It's too,
Yeah.
Even if I wasn't fat, this is like too small.
Do you think there'll ever be like a nuclear submarine museum?
Probably not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Well, I mean, there'll be one where they cut the front of it off, and you can see.
Yeah, I guess you couldn't. Yeah, you could never take like a decommissioned nuclear submarine and like let's have a crowd go through here. Like those things are forever out in the ocean until we sink them somewhere for good. But
Desert. That's where all the Los Angeles. They bury them in the desert.
yeah, I guess you never do it because you never build one and you could never just decommission one and throw people in it as a museum.
Well, those are such advanced pieces of equipment, though. Like, even our stuff that was around when I was 10 years old, like the Los Angeles attack submarine, that stuff's mostly secret still.
Yeah.
There's like, those things don't just phase in and out of service. They have like human length lifespans of service because number one, they cost so much money. And number two, it's like the smartest people in the world build them and operate them. Like, that doesn't change a whole lot. It's like we're not trading in for the new next year's model all the time.
In fact, we just built last year's model just to keep a budget in order.
Yeah.
Hey, which one should we build? Let's just build last year's. Like, should we do something new? Like, no, they'll stop giving us money if we do something new.
Something new means something not necessarily better, but just more expensive. But yeah, no, I doubt they'll ever have a nuclear anything museum. Just because it's, I mean, maybe 100 years from now.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, not in our lifetimes. So much of that stuff's just secret.
Whether at the USS Hornet, they just have that docked off somewhere and you can go in and hang out. Is that a nuclear submarine or is that just or not a submarine, battleship, or is that a carrier?
I think it's a carrier from World War II.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they had, and what was it? Because they wanted to do that with the Enterprise to make it into like the ultimate World War II naval museum.
Yeah.
The ship had been sunk and severely damaged so many times it was just asbestos and steel, and so many people had died in it. The guys were like, that's more of a graveyard than like somewhere where you want your kids running around screaming. It's like that. Yeah, let's just not do it. So they just named another ship Enterprise.
What's the one in New York where it's just an aircraft carrier just parked off with like a bunch of, it's just basically a museum, right?
Is that the Ranger or the Forrestal? I don't know. Let me look.
I've never been there. I just always seen it in places.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there.
Yeah, because they have like aircraft on there, and they'll have like museum kind of. It's basically a museum.
Yeah. Isn't New York where they have
Oh,
where all the Navy ships come in?
there's fleet weeks in different places.
New York I always thought was a big one. Yeah, it's the Intrepid.
Okay, yeah.
Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. 1982 is when it opened.
Huh.
They have space shuttles sitting on the deck and everything.
Yeah, I think I've seen one. I think they've had like an SR-71 on there.
Yeah.
They change it out, the aircraft they put on there, but yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. They also use it in movies all the time. Like I think they used it in oh shit, what was that
Will Smith movie.
yeah, the Will Smith Apocalypse movie.
Shooting golf balls off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That's kind of cool. But yeah, there's a few of them. I know the Enterprise didn't make it though because it was. They just guys basically said that's more of a tomb than a because so many people had died on it, and it had almost been sunk like 2 or 3 times. They had to keep bringing it back and rebuilding it, and the Japanese were like, they'll never have that ready again. And then like 2 weeks later, like, how did they do that?
Well, it's barely effective, but it's more fearful than it is effective.
Yeah.
God, the guys who have been like the third guy to be in that position, like, so who was in my position before this? Like, 3 other guys died horribly before you got here. So.
Oh, last guy that was in that position, we took him out in a bucket behind you. Yeah, that kamikaze shit is. I like those because they had a lot of cameras running on some of those operations. You see those guys just hammering away with those anti-aircraft guns that were all over those ships, and this kamikaze flies straight into them. It's like, that's nuts. And the guy's 10 feet away, they're still feeding shells in. Like, oh, look at that. Feeding shells in. Ship's on fire. World War II was such a... The naval battles in World War II were so crazy. Especially, mostly the ones we fought. Because those were the... That was like our big tech war was with the Japanese. Because we just had this huge geographical area to cover with this fleet that... You know, and it was all vengeance for Pearl Harbor right up until Hiroshima. That was basically what it was. Well, the bombing campaign in Japan was pretty nasty too. They don't ever. The only bombing campaign they talk about in Japan was Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's like, oh, the regular ones were.
Yeah, the firebombing of Tokyo is like, on some levels, far more massively destructive of human life and destruction than either of the nuclear bombs that went off.
Oh, yeah, they killed more people, and it killed more people in an awful way because basically sucked the. And they knew it was going to happen. They were trying to create this effect called firestorm, where it's just we create this huge column of flame that just sucks all the air around it up for miles, and they did it, or at least they claim they did it. People have disputed it since, but the people in Tokyo didn't know the difference. They're like, well, maybe that happened or didn't, but yeah, people basically got incinerated where they were standing because of the hot wind that the fire was pulling in behind them when they were like, you know, maybe 2,000 feet away from the bombing. Like, they didn't understand why they were dying. Yeah, and the stuff we did in Germany wasn't nice either. They say Japan was subjected to the most comprehensive bombing campaign in World War II. And that was all America. That wasn't, you know, I think the Russians did some stuff, but they didn't have the, you know,
Did the British do anything?
I don't know if, I think they did some stuff. I don't know, but a lot of theirs.
I mean, they're probably stretched too thin anyway. So.
Yeah, they were mostly in Europe. That's where Bomber Harris was like, yeah, it's firebomb Dresden.
But also, they still had like all their colonies too. So you know.
Yeah, I mean, they were around. They just didn't like blot out the sun with bombs.
No, the British bombed at night so they could like maybe save their planes and not die.
Yeah,
but also like the collateral damage they inflicted on like civilian populations is unaccounted for.
Well, it's just the cost of war. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean
You're gonna miss.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons that the American, and it's not necessarily like it's still fucking war, so like it's awful anyways. But one of the reasons the Americans bombed during the day is they wanted to hit what they're aiming at.
Well, we didn't do things like we fused our bombs to go. I mean, primarily, unless there was a tactical reason for it, we mainly fused our bombs to go off when they hit. Not the British. It's like fuse half the bombs hit on impact. The follow-up bombs 2-hour delay fuse. It's why is that? It'll kill the rescue workers and firemen and make the fire spread more. It's like, really? Are you serious right now? Okay, that's your thing. RAF, you do your thing.
Is that against the Geneva Convention? No, it's a calculated mistake.
Well, believe me, if the Germans were bombing the shit out of New York and Atlanta, they would do the same shit.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just terrible because
Nobody's hands are clean in war.
yeah. Well, that's what fucking Curtis LeMay told. Who was it? Was it MacArthur or something? Basically, he was like, "Yeah, we got to win this fucking war. Or we're gonna be hung." And he was talking about the bombings in Japan. He's like, "We have to win at this point. They will hang us for what we're doing here." Because we deliberately used like a lot of napalm and stuff in Japan because it was way more effective. Because actually, like 500-pound bombs weren't that effective when you're bombing wood and paper buildings because the blast wave would just cut through them and they wouldn't even knock them over because they didn't have a lot of resistance to the sonic pressure. But if you used napalm on it, it was wildly effective. It would spread. It's like throwing a lit match on dry grass. It just spread out. But again, you can watch documentaries and read all about it.
Yeah, it's what the History Channel used to show.
Yeah,
before 24 Hours of Pawn Star.
Pawn Stars. Yeah, the only thing I watch on the History Channel, I occasionally watch UFO stuff. Just
nostalgia.
No, because I don't want to think about what's going on in the world. Like when I sit down to eat dinner, you're gonna see like flying saucers and stuff on my TV because I'm not like I don't want to hear about Trump, the coronavirus, the end of Western civilization. I don't. I want to eat dinner. I'm gonna eat these tacos and learn about some aliens. After tacos are done, then we can flip back to death and devastation. And then of course Forged in Fire. I've seen every episode of that, sometimes multiple times. That's getting. Now the judges are competing.
Yeah, you were talking about that a couple shows ago.
Yeah, they've done another one of those, but they're bringing back like the guys that have won before. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I just burped. It's okay.
Oh, I thought you were gonna add something.
No, I still haven't seen it. I've been meaning to. It's like that. What was the? No, it wasn't Full Metal Joust. What was the one where they're all like, it's like rugby, but with like the knights?
Oh, Night Fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that got picked up again.
Did it?
That was amazing to see though, because that was full contact, full fighting, but just their suits were a lot more. Well, there were certain things you couldn't do, like stab right at the visor and stuff. I'm sure that was out. They're mostly using bludgeoning weapons, but it was amazing to see, like, those guys would be winded after, like, 30 seconds. Like, they'd just be heaving. Because the guys that won were not necessarily the big giant guys, but they were the guys that could dance around fast and didn't get winded. But all of them got winded eventually.
Yeah.
You're just swinging these... It's like swinging a baseball bat around and jogging at the same time. You get really tired. And, yeah, I haven't seen if there's been a night fight. But I don't see. So I don't know how many shows have just not come back, or it's just the coronavirus has just stopped production on it.
Yeah.
So it could be back, but and I'll watch it if it does. Now the Full Metal one was that jousting?
Yeah, there's Full Metal Joust. That was one.
Yeah, that was nuts. Wearing like a Hans device.
Yeah.
Jousting, because the most common injury, getting knocked off a horse, you break your neck. I don't think that one's around.
No, I just had one season and it disappeared.
Well, I think they found the 15 lunatics who do that for sport, and then it's like, well,
I think they like paired it up with Top Shot, and but Top Shot was already like on the decline. I don't think Top Shot's around anymore.
Mm-mm. They won't do shows centered around firearms anymore. It's too.
It's not controversial. Well, it's they all those shows fall apart in the weirdest and
Almost horrifying.
yeah.
Like the one guy was he'd raped his daughter, and then he was raping his granddaughter, and then you find out, like, in the legalese, like, some of those guys didn't have licenses to do half the shit
Yeah.
they were doing, and it's like, well, who's the producer on this show? It's like, let's bring in some lawyers, and I mean, the guy raping his children, you can't control that. But yeah, you got to make sure everyone's got a license to build fully automatic weapons before
Yeah.
you start televising it.
And then there's the other one, American Gun, and that guy got in trouble too, and like also apparently didn't have like the builder's license required to actually run the company.
No.
I mean, like he employed somebody who did, but he didn't. He himself did not. So
Right. Yeah, and you can't do that.
yeah. Well, you technically can do that, but when you then have access to these firearms because you own the building that these automatic firearms in, and then like, hey, things went missing, then the feds will come for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why they don't do gun-centered shows. I think they could, like that guy, Ian on Forgotten Weapons, like he could probably do a gun. He
Yeah.
could probably transfer over because he seems to like know all the laws and know a lot about guns and partners with other people that are just like aficionados. There's no political agenda with him that I know of. So
Yeah.
he could probably be like just a gun enthusiast.
Yeah.
Like, let's build a doomsday bunker and talk about the protocols of Zion or whatever those people get sucked into.
Yeah, but he's all about like the history of it. He's not like building the weapons, except for I mean, he could probably do things. Well, actually, yeah, there's like weird things that actually can't show you like how to build weapons on YouTube, so that's a weird thing. But
Bummer, because everyone needs that information. No, you can go to gun shows and buy poorly produced DVD.
well, it's just a YouTube thing. So when still haven't done it yet, but they have the What Would Stoner Do 2020 rifle that they're working on, and they've only released kind of like update things because so far they've got a company to build the buttstock or the whole lower assembly out of what is it? Not carbon fiber, but like something like that.
Yeah.
And like fiberglass or some shit like that. And because the company that on the last rifle they bought it from, it went out of business, so like nobody makes these stocks anymore. So they just got a company to make a new one. And so yeah, they've done stuff like that, slight updates about the stock, but they haven't like put together like they did the last time, where it's like, you know, here's the upper, here's the charging handle, and it's just a whole episode on a charging handle.
Yep.
But like they have like supplemental stuff on the Brownells channel because Brownells is going to be selling the rifle.
Oh, okay.
And because Brownells owns their website, they can put whatever the fuck they want on it. So they will have like instructional detail on how to build firearms on their website, but they can't put it on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably good. That
Yeah, it's you know, it's
if I was
understandable.
YouTube, I wouldn't take the liability of "Here's my Baker Claymore mine at home." Some idiot's gonna do it. That's the problem. It's not gonna be a fun thing. But yeah, like I said, they could do gun shows with guys like that, but they always seem to find these unsteady rednecks that are kind of like, oh, because they build it around a reality show.
Yeah, so they want people that are like captivating in some way.
Yeah.
And build and just create drama.
Yeah. There's not gonna be a lot of drama if Ian like Forgotten Weapons on History Channel. Like he's not gonna be fighting with his wife. Don't you fuck with my hat collection? You know, that's not gonna happen.
Here's a crazy thing that I learned the other day. So when they get rifles and do like testing with them, so I thought companies were just like sending it to them, and then when they're done with it, they send it back. No, like not always, sometimes, but no, companies are just giving them those rifles.
Oh yeah, yeah. Didn't know that?
No,
Yeah, because if they didn't do that, they'd have to send a representative down there, and he'd have to stick around for a random filming schedule.
Yeah.
Just mail them the gun.
Yeah.
To whatever dealer they are, then they're responsible for it. And if someone gets killed on the range while they're filming something, it's like, well, M&P's not on the hook for that. Or
And if filming is successful and their gun looks good, then that's a bunch of sales in their pocket.
yeah, because they're not paying this guy $5,000 to produce an episode around their gun. They're just giving him a gun, which is something they probably have, I don't know, $200 or $300. So yeah, it's a win-win.
Because Ian was doing a thing where he was having all his submachine guns and he was testing them out, and he had to SBR them, and like so he talked about in an earlier video, and like he's waiting to get all the SBR like stuff done, and I was like, oh, these rifles he has, and like and I was like, oh, did the company send him a rifle and then he has to SBR it himself? Like that isn't like, oh, he just owns that rifle now. He was just giving it to him. And like those things are like, fucking $1,000 to $3,000, and I'm sure he has no problem. It's like, well, I'll just sell this now.
Yeah.
But
I like those guys that have like the weird collectors that have all this stuff in like giant warehouses.
yeah,
It's like this guy's got the only example. There's people with artillery. Like this guy has the only example of this artillery piece working in the world, and it's in some dude's warehouse, and it's just an artillery thing. And now usually you have to have someone make the shell. Like they don't have the shells there with it. But
yeah, or
it's
it's
like-
it's slightly decommissioned in some way.
some they fire. I mean, they have guys
Yeah.
manufacture the shells. They just go out and shoot them.
Well, again, like I forget, like, yeah, there's like ways to own it, but like it has to be in like a historical context or something like that, or be owned by a military, because like I think like artillery is considered a destructive device. Yeah.
It is. You don't do mining with it. Pump oil out of the ground with artillery.
But
That privately own, not even tanks, just like Russian APCs from the 80s. It's like I watched that. Did you see that documentary on Netflix about the guy that built his own tank out of a bulldozer and went wild in that town?
I haven't
Yeah,
seen it yet.
Well, we'll talk about it. It's called Tread, but just the point is like that guy took a Komatsu bulldozer because he was an extremely talented welder and made something that essentially only stopped because it overheated and he got stuck. The police couldn't stop. They were shooting at it with 50 calibers, and they couldn't stop it because he just welded these huge plates and
Yeah.
had cameras all over the outside of it so he could drive it because they thought it was remote control at first. Like, there's no way someone's in there. But anyway, it's like people that just straight up buy tanks and stuff with just no functioning weapons. It's like, that's still a wildly destructive thing. You go nuts with that. Even an armored personnel carrier, it's like, that's going to run through buildings like it's not there. It hasn't happened a lot. It's happened. I think we've had people go nuts with armored vehicles 3 times in recent memory. It was that guy. There was the Marine that stole the M60 tank and was driving it down the California freeway.
Yeah.
And there was a third guy that had something.
There's a guy with a bus, right?
Yeah, something like that. It was 2 of them were. One of them was actually an armored vehicle. The other 2 were homemade. Well, a bulldozer is essentially a tank without a gun on it.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to. When that guy was driving around town, because he wasn't driving around fast, they had plenty of time to plan because it was a bulldozer. But they were using earth-moving equipment that the city had to try to block him. And this guy would slam into him with an earth mover, and it would just push the earth mover out of the way. And the cop's like, "Why can't you stop it?" And it's like, because he's got metal treads. I didn't have tires. And the earth mover's weighed more than the bulldozer, but it's just because it has so much grip on the ground.
There's not enough traction
Push it
to.
out of the way. And yeah, that was Tread's a interesting. It's interesting documentary. It shows exactly what he did and how dangerous it was, and it should have been a lot more destructive, but because of a design failure, because he just parked that thing in front of a big natural gas facility and started firing incendiary 50 caliber rounds into the. He was trying to shoot them into the giant propane tanks that were at this facility, but because of the way he designed it, his bullets were bouncing off. And because if he'd have done that, he'd have fucking blown that whole town up if it had been successful. It would have killed him too, but yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's because it shows his side of it, who the people who he thinks wronged him and why, and then they talk to those.
Oh, is that guy still alive?
No, he's dead.
Okay.
He shot him. He killed himself
Okay.
because he realized he couldn't move his bulldozer anymore, so he just stuck a gun in his mouth. But it took him like 3 hours to figure out he was dead. They had to get welding torches out and cut the operating bay open. And then I like the guys that were mad because they tore up because as soon as the investigation and everything was over, they took it to some guy's shop and they just cut it up into little pieces and buried it in the desert because they didn't want people to come take souvenirs of it or anything. And these two guys were like, they should have made a museum out of that. Funny, this town, that was cool as shit.
Look at this creative atrocity.
We can say this because this guy, didn't.
Well, did anybody other than him die, or he just do a lot of damage?
He did a lot of damage.
Okay.
It wasn't. It's not exciting to look at from like a helicopter. Now, when they had guys on the ground filming, it's like, oh, this is scary. But you realize you could just like mosey out of this thing. It wasn't going very fast. You couldn't stop it. But I. As soon as they started, like, what are we going to do? We need to get a law rocket from the National Guard or what? And they're calling the National Guard, and they're like, no.
Law rocket won't do anything.
Well, no, they were like asking them to like bring equipment down here and destroy this thing. It's like, yeah, we're not going to fire missiles off in the middle of town. It's not. If he was killing thousands of people, yes, but they couldn't get anything there fast enough.
F-16 to a bombing run.
Freaking run on a town. A-10. Fucking destroys the tank but kills like 400. Like, well, that's what they do in Russia. That's not exactly what you'd want to do. But yeah, the one thing they never figured out is like, because he was attacking people that had other businesses that also had heavy equipment on the premises, is like, you guys got diesel fuel. He's sitting here destroying your business. Fill pails with diesel fuel, get a road flare, start saturating the side of this thing and light it on fire. I mean, seriously, someone's going to die horribly, but it's like shooting 9mm handguns at this thing is not doing any good. But if you light it on fire, you're going to burn through the hoses, but everyone was panicked. I guess I wouldn't, if that suddenly happened to me, I wouldn't think too clearly. Like, well, what we need is diesel fuel and road flares. Like, oh, you've been thinking about it.
What about your own safety? What? This is awesome. This is my
cool video.
I'm going to be a hero. My own personal diehard.
Yep. Die Hard, just a fat guy walking out there with a give me the fucking flare.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
You light it on fire and you just hear the guy screaming inside and everyone kind of feels bad. It's like sort of anticlimactic. It's like, well, we stopped it. Go home.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, you just barbecue some guy alive. It's like, what? You're not comfortable with that kind of heroism? The old burning people alive song and dance? You don't like that one? Bunch of pussies. But yeah, just watch Tread. It's interesting. Right. It's interesting in two ways. What the crazy shit he did and kind of the loony thinking and the imaginary victimization that led an ostensibly very intelligent man to do something wildly destructive and ultimately pointless. But then he acknowledges, because he recorded tapes while he was making this thing, and he completely acknowledges, I'm going to die. This isn't going to prove anything. I was right, but no one's going to believe me. And he was right. And all it's like, yes, yes, and yes. So what's going on?
Just burping.
Oh, I thought something was attacking you.
No.
Like a hand was going to reach out.
Just not trying to not burp directly into the mic. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, something we've talked about for 20 minutes that we'll watch and talk about again later. So Formula One. What's going
Formula One update. So I have some corrections from the last time I talked about Formula One. I accidentally said that Silverstone was in London. I meant to just say it's in Great Britain. Silverstone's the town.
Oh, okay. Get some angry fan feedback.
No. I just went back. Every once in a while, I go back and like rewatch the show, just make sure it's just some quality control. And then, it's like, is this good? And I'm like, I kind of like it. I think we're better than most podcasts, but there's so many podcasts. That's a really low bar.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm better than the guys who have 15 minutes of silence in the middle of their show. Not so good as the people that actually do like a lot of pre-production and preparing.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I really don't listen to podcasts that are like with a lot of production in them. I don't like a lot of production in my podcast. I like natural. I want a podcast that feels like I'm hanging out with my friends. I don't want a podcast that's like, this would be better as a visual documentary.
Yeah, that's true.
I do really appreciate the ones that are the production ones. I just like I don't make an effort to ever listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, like the tip of the pinnacle there is like something like Radio Lab.
Yeah, Radio Lab.
Like that's a real. I don't even know if that's supposed to be a radio show. I always think of it as a podcast, but yeah, they do a lot of crazy stuff. Yeah, the podcasts I enjoy are these ones that are like real specific, like real topically driven specific ones. A lot of those have just become YouTube channels with some simple graphics.
Yeah.
But some of the ones I like that I've listened to again and again, like there was, I mean, sometimes Dan Carlin does those multi-hour episodes on the Battle of Hastings or something. It's like those are always good because it's like, where did he find all this information? But yeah, some of those I like ones that are really specific and about topics and the things that I enjoy. I like some of the more what I call sane conspiracy ones, where the guys are like, there is a conspiracy, but let's pull the brakes on aliens and stuff like that. It's like, let's look at what this really is. Some of those guys those are getting hard to find. A lot of those guys are Patreon now because they can't monetize anywhere, because even if you even hint about that, everyone thinks you're like Alex Jones. It's like, oh, no. And some of them are like about things that happened, like like the London financial scandal of 1902, obscure topics, but they actually have all the information. Like they have some dude on that wrote a book about it, and those are fun. But yeah, those are just guys talking.
I heard about one podcast that seemed interesting, but I haven't looked into it yet because I thought it was like a book and like, wow, that sounds interesting. And then I realized they were talking about a podcast. I don't think it's done yet, but it's about the band, was it Scorpion? It's some band that wrote a song, and it's all about like how this kind of like ballad metal song was made to like destroy communism. And there's like a lot of information around like the band and like CIA and stuff like that. There's like weird involvement in all this stuff, and like where that premise is like starting to like take hold somehow. It's like so that sounded kind of interesting.
Okay. The Scorpions are from Germany, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Scorpion. I can't remember. I just completely forgot. Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking. I got some information up right now. Winds of Change was written by the CIA.
Yeah, that's it.
1990 power ballad. A piece of late war, Cold War propaganda. It's called Wind of Change, coming May 11th, so it might already be out. I'll have to check that out and see if right up my alley. I like that Cold War shit.
But yeah, that sounded interesting, but I didn't look it up yet. Because I was like, that sounds fascinating. Like, we should do that for our next book. I was like, oh, it's just a podcast.
Podcast about a podcast.
There's got to
we
be.
talk about the same things they do.
Yeah. Well, I got to think about like on this topic of like, so I listened to an F1 podcast, and it's not the most technical podcast, and it's probably it's not useful necessarily for watching F1. I mean, it is useful in some ways, but it's mostly I like it because it's three friends talking about F1, not necessarily because they have the best information about F1.
Oh, okay.
But
They just enjoy it.
yeah,
Okay.
but I do get a lot of information out of it, and it's fun to listen to them talk about F1. It's fun to hear them enjoy things rather than just like kind of a bland podcast where it's like regaling us with the technical information about the recent teams.
yeah.
So yeah, and I learned something about. So yeah, we were talking about last time about F1 cars don't have starter engines, and so if they stall, they can't start up again. Well, they can because the F1, the current F1 engines are hybrid engines, so they do have an electrical motor on there, and so if the car does stall, if there's enough juice in the electric motor, it can crank over the engine and try to get it back running again.
Oh, okay.
So that's a way, but they still do. When they first started up, they still do that thing where they have like the long pole and they screw drive it to start it. So, yeah, yeah. It's called the MGU, the motor generating unit. That's what they call the engine.
Okay.
And so there's the MGU-H, which is motor generating unit heat, which that's the fuel engine. And then there's the MGU-K, which is motor generating unit kinetic, and that's the electrical engine.
Huh.
So yeah, I learned that because I always hear them like talk about the MGU-K, and like I had no idea what the fuck they're talking about. So I also was another correction. I was talking about how Haas has. I was saying like some Italian auto parts thing makes their car. I think they do make auto parts, but the company that makes it's called Dallara.
Okay.
And so yeah, they don't just make auto parts; they make a fuck ton of racing vehicles.
Oh, okay.
And so like so we're talking about the minor league for F1, F2. So the F2 cars. So in F1, a lot of the thing is like you have to build your own car, and so that's a large part of it. Well, in F2. It's all just one car. It's a one manufacturer, and Dallara builds all those cars.
Oh, okay.
Same thing with Formula E. So Dallara builds all those cars. And the same thing with IndyCar. Dallara builds all the IndyCar cars.
Wow. Okay.
So they build a fuck ton of cars. And then they build...
They're almost like borderline monopoly on something.
Yeah. Except for... and then they build Haas's car, so that's their one F1 car they build. So yeah, that's. And then I got another update about Ferrari. Like, remember, I was like they got in trouble for doing something, and I was saying something about like they're strategically leaking oil to like cool the engine or something.
Okay.
That's probably still true. I remember hearing shit about that, but I found out what exactly or what their what's anticipated that they did is that so in the F1 regulations or whatever, there's a limiter on the fuel injector. You can only like flow through so much fuel at a time. There's a limit on it. And so what Ferrari did is that there's a sensor on it to make sure that it's legal.
Okay.
And like the sensor takes like 600 readings every like minute.
Okay.
And so some engineer cleverly engineered it so that like in the microseconds that it wasn't reading the fuel injection.
Double pump in those little gaps.
Yes.
God damn. That sounds like some Volkswagen shit.
Which that's kind of amazing.
That's a guy who's a little too smart for his own good. Does dumping fuel help those engines a lot, though?
What do you mean?
I mean, because it's like those are real high compression ratio engines, right?
I assume. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably like 13, 17 to 1 or something. I just don't know. Like, if dumping more fuel could create more exhaust problems for them, like just being able to get it in and out. Because I know those are real short stroke engines. That's why they run those crazy, they whine like at 12,000 RPM. You know why they can do that and your car can't do that? because the distance the piston has to go is so much shorter, and those engines, they just real short stroke engines.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know, I mean, it was there's a clear difference between last year's engine and this engine. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah,
and it's pretty clear that that was the culprit.
yeah I'm talking like about knowledge I had from 10 years ago. So all changed.
I don't know, like these engines are like weird, like I said, because they used to have like V10s or whatever, and then they well, at some point they had V12s, but I think the regulations before the new ones, before the hybrid engines, they're just like big V8s,
Yeah.
and I believe these are like V6s with like a hybrid unit.
Okay.
And but they're still faster than the previous cars, so they're faster than V12s and all that. But it's mostly because of the aerodynamic.
Well, in the weight. I mean, yeah, when they were making V12s, that's when Lola and Cosworth were making those.
Yeah.
engines. Those are beautiful to hear. Those are amazing. Not like a V12 engine with a couple turbochargers, like at 15,000 RPM. Like, that's amazing to hear. It's also amazing to see those crankshafts balanced because they're this fucking long.
And then I've been playing more of the F1 video game, and I went through a different. So I've been doing the My Team mode. That's where like you create your own racing team and you race through. And then I switched over to like the My Career mode where you just play as a racer. And I'm starting out in F2, and it's very different than what. So like in F1, the only way you can score points is on race day. Be in 1 through 10 position. That's the only way you can score points and have the fastest lap. That's the only way you can score points in F1.
Okay.
In F2, so like, here's a race weekend for F1. You have what you call free practice 1, 2, and 3. And that's basically when the teams go out and they're just figuring out the car for the track. You know, how each tire element works, how much fuel you're putting in the car. They just kind of figure that out. It's called free practice. And they have like an hour to go out on the track and try to figure shit out. And you have 3 of those. So you have free practice 1 and 2 on Friday, and then on Saturday you have free practice 3, and then you have qualifying. And then on Sunday you have the race. So in F2 you have free practice 1. And that's all the practice you get.
Okay. Just one free practice.
Yep, just one free practice. And then you have qualifying. And so that's Friday. And if you qualify in first, you get 4 points. I don't think you get any points for any lower. It's only if you get if you qualify in first place. Then they have what they call the feature race on Saturday. And so that's just a race, and it's lined up in how they qualified. And then on Sunday, they have what's called a sprint race. So it's a shorter race, but depending on how people finished in the feature race, they take the 1 through 8 and how they finished in the feature race, and they swap 1 through 8. So if you finish first, you're going to start in the 8th position in the sprint race.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting. And then, but the sprint, what's that?
Just to mix it up.
Yeah. Because it's basically testing like, is it the skill of the driver essentially? There's less points in the sprint race, but there's still points to be had. But I thought that was really cool because then it forces you in the game. Because I'm like, I tried to like put more like less assists on, but I like pretty much have all the assists off, and like the game's still like too easy for me. So I only have the AI driver level at hard, so maybe I need to turn it to extreme. But so it makes it funner because I'm usually just like I qualify in first, and then I just like run away with a race. So it's fun to like qualify in first, run away with the first race, and then like have to like weave my way through the pack in the second race. That's really fun. So yeah, it also made me more interested in like maybe I should start watching F2.
Yeah.
Because I don't watch it. Also, I already know 20 drivers. I don't want to know another 20 drivers. Actually, I think there's more teams in F2. I think there's like 30 drivers or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, so yeah, we've had so the Silverstone is tomorrow. The first Silverstone race is tomorrow, and it's been a crazy weekend. Not unexpected. It's just like it's actually kind of expected. It's just kind of like, oh, it happened finally. So what's made this weekend crazy is that so Sergio Perez was coming to the track and his COVID test came back inconclusive. And then they tested him again and he tested positive for COVID-19.
Uh-oh.
So he's out of the race. And so they're looking so they have reserve drivers in case like a driver can't race. But for some reason, Racing Point, they're sharing their reserve drivers they're sharing Mercedes reserve drivers. But Mercedes reserve driver, one of them is in Formula E and he's in Berlin for like the Formula E finals. So he's not going to come and race. He's not going to come on down and race at Silverstone. And then the other driver, so F1 drivers have a special license called a super license.
Okay.
And it needs to be up to date in order for you to drive an F1 car. There's actually some interesting what needs to be. So you need like race in other races to actually be able to get a super license. You need to be good at other races to prove you can drive an F1 car.
Okay.
You also need to hold a license in your home country, and you can't like have any tickets or anything whatsoever, or you lose your super license.
Nice.
And there's other, but you have to know a bunch of safety procedures and stuff like that. Like it's a very extensive test. And if you you get points on your super license, like if you get like, if you knock somebody off the track and stuff like that, you'll get points on your super license. And if you get so many points in a, it's kind of a rotating year. It's like once 6 months goes by, like those points will come off your super license. But if you get enough points, you lose your super license.
Huh. I had no idea there was this subworld.
Also, they're expensive as shit.
Oh yeah, well everything in that. It's like
Well, I mean, all those guys are rich, but so.
Yeah, all your biggest barriers to entry in those things.
Well, I saw something like it costs like it said £3,000 for a super license, but then for some reason Lewis Hamilton had to spend $3,000 like a couple years ago to get to like renew his super license, and I didn't see the explanation why. It was just in the wiki article about how crazy super licenses are. So, So anyways, so they don't have a reserve driver yet, and but because of the musical chairs of F1, and last year, Nico Hulkenberg got kicked out of Renault because they didn't renew his contract, and then like there was no other seats in F1 for him to take, and so he was out of a seat. And Racing Point, which used to be Force India, like he was a driver for Force India, so like they know each other. And they call him up, and like at 4 p.m. and he lives in Monaco. He took a flight to Silverstone. He gets tested for like COVID-19. He does a seat because the seats are fitted to the people, so he had to do like a seat fitting from like 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then he had to take his test to like basically like renew his super license. And then like by 11 a.m. the next day, he was ready to go for free practice 1.
Wow.
And so one of the interesting things about Nico Hulkenberg is that he's probably one of the best racers to never get a podium.
Okay.
But he's also never really had a great car behind him. And Racing Point is a good car. Now, it's been a while since he's raced. I doubt he'll get a podium. But, man, that'd be awesome if he did. Because he's got a good car behind him. But yeah, that's probably one of the most interesting things that happened this weekend. He did pretty well. He was in the free practice. His times were in the top 10, but during qualifying he qualified in 13th. But you know, like I said, he just came out of nowhere. He didn't know he was going to be racing an F1 car this weekend.
Yeah.
And because of the way the testing procedures are, they're having another race there next weekend. So he might be racing again next weekend.
Oh,
So-
okay.
Because like I think the local rules, like you have to self-isolate for 10 days.
Okay.
But also he still has to like have a negative result on the COVID test if he's going to race again, if Sergio Perez is going to race again. So, Nico Hulkenberg might be back next week for another race. And hey, who knows? I mean, that'd be a miracle if that guy got a podium in one of these races just out of nowhere. It's like, hey, you don't have a job this year. And all of a sudden he gets 2 races behind him. But
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's going from one extreme to the other.
yeah. Yeah, and it feels sorry for Sergio Perez, but he says he's okay. He seems to be asymptomatic. So, and he's there's I don't know. There's different things that say like he's the only positive they've had, but then they said there was 2 other positives in Hungary, but that might not have been for the F1 production. It might have been someone else, like the trackside or something like that. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so yeah, the race is in like I don't know, like 4 hours or something like that from now. It's I'm not sure when Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah.
Where we like -6 or something like that. I don't know. Find out in the morning. The race will be on. But yeah, it's and they had qualification. So Lewis Hamilton, obviously he qualified in first, so he's probably gonna win that race.
Yeah.
Bottas is in second. So, yeah, it was another Mercedes 1-2. Verstappen's 3. Leclerc's 4, which that's actually pretty good because he races for Ferrari and their team's pretty fucked this year. And so he qualified in 4th. Like, so he's just a good driver. So, whatever. Yeah. So, I'll have another update next week. Hopefully, Hulkenberg. It'd be nice if Hulkenberg had some crazy shit go his way. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it's been pretty tumultuous. People racing, not racing, maybe racing. You want to go to dark now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we've been watching a movie or a TV series on Netflix for 3 years. It's the German science fiction television show. Is it on TV over there, or is it just a Netflix thing?
I think it's just a Netflix thing.
Okay.
But I actually don't know. I know it's a co-production between Netflix and a weird German production thing. So, who knows?
Yeah, but it's the TV series called Dark, which is actually its name. I thought it was like, it's like, oh, is dark the same word in German as it is in English? Nope, it's called Dark. That's its name, which is an English word. The German word for dark is something else. So.
Schwarz. Well, that's black. So I don't know.
And it lives up to its name. I mean, and I'm not going to do something where I try to explain all the timelines at work here because you need like Venn diagrams, all that stuff.
I mean, when you get down to it, there's 3 timelines.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's like I had to look at like a map. I don't think that's necessarily present during the. It's not really known to like pretty much like the last episode.
Yeah, you think there's like a 33-year time gap here, and then it's like people are traveling back and forth through different ways in this 33-year span, but it's actually no. There's like, you find out in Series 3 that there's not just one but 2 tangent universes that must collapse. I'm mixing some Donnie Darko with this, but yeah, that's there's the Prime universe or the Origin universe, and then there's Adam's universe and Eva's universe. And so time travel was actually invented in the Origin world, which is where all this came from.
Yeah, I like the idea. There's like the guy, was it Tannhauser or something?
H.G. Tannhausen, which is a humorous homage to H.G. Wells. Time machine.
So like when we see him, like people are asking, like, so you invented time travel? And he's like, no, I just got this book one day. And I like this idea. There's actually like they actually like have some concept, but essentially like if you ever invent time travel, it'll just perpetuate itself.
Yep.
So like you invent time travel and then you refine it and then like you send that information back in time and it just perpetuates itself. So like time travel just always exists once it ever existed.
Yep. Yeah. Once you invent it, you can't undo it. But I guess in the world of Dark, you just create tangent universes.
Yeah.
That that's why characters that died started coming back and stuff. It's like, wait a minute, isn't this person dead? Why is there an older version of this already dead person? And then, oh, they're from either Eve's world or Adam's world. And actually, it's Eva, not Eve, but yeah. And then all these people are interconnected. And then when Adam and Eva have a child, that's the three guys. Young, middle-aged, and old. The unknown.
Just unknown, yeah.
That's because those are children of two tangent universes. So that creates problems because of reasons.
Well, yeah, they keep finding everyone has a different. Everyone says like if they find the origin and they kill the origin, then this will all stop and they'll save the world. But everybody has a different idea of what the origin is. Now, whenever they said the origin, I just thought that meant the original time travel device.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's a child. And it's like, or it's this person. It's Martha. Like, no, it's the children of Martha and Jonas. No, it's this. And I'm like, and it ends up just being the original time travel device. Like, oh, I was right all along. This is too complicated.
Yep. Yeah. It was forcing people to overthink and like, what is it? And I didn't do a lot of speculation in this show. I just watched it.
Yeah.
I didn't look at a lot of things on the internet because I didn't want anything spoiled.
Yeah, I only looked afterwards just to clarify. It's like, what's going on here?
But like I said, I watched the last like 6 episodes in German, just with English subtitles, because it seemed more effective. I get because the actors were like delivering dialogue forcefully, and it's like you had to read it. I didn't really understand it. But they didn't seem weirdly dissociated like they kind of do with English dubbing, where they're saying something, potent, but maybe the actor's not doing the voice acting that well. And it's like, I just killed my mother. But when you watch it in German, it's like they're shouting it.
Yeah.
What am I doing? In German, like I said, is always a vaguely sinister language because of, recent history. So it was a little more effective.
Yeah, I had some, because I vaguely know German. There's some interesting things where you get to see where the person who did the subtitles was interpreting things differently.
Yeah,
because a lot of times they'll say Shiza a lot, and then in the subtitles sometimes it'll be interpreted as just shit. Sometimes it'll be interpreted as crap, and sometimes it'll be interpreted as fuck. And I had no idea about the when that interpretation came into. I guess maybe they pick up on the scene and fuck's the most severe.
Yeah.
Or there's maybe just a different word and they combine it together. I don't know. It was what was the other phrases? Yeah, I've already forgot the stuff. Other stuff they'll be essentially what they're saying is I can't believe what I'm seeing, but in the sentence they're sehen is the verb to see.
Yeah.
In German, but they aren't saying ich nicht verstehen Zeist or something like that. They say something like ich nicht verstehe die Augen, which is I can't believe my eyes or something like.
My eyes are lying to me.
Yeah.
Whoa, deep.
But it gets interpreted as I can't believe what I'm seeing. It's oh yeah, I can see why you did. But also I actually kind of prefer the direct translation because it just sounds fucking weird.
Yeah, it sounds more meta. But yeah, the third season definitely I mean, if I was gonna rate the seasons, I'd say the first season was a good introduction, but it wasn't quite as enthralling as the second season. The second season was a lot of jumping around and a lot of new things being introduced, but it was more engaging.
Yeah.
And then the third season, they just stomped the accelerator and they just started introducing things. It's oh yeah, 3 universes, got to destroy them both. to reset to 1986. Cool things about this series: the same director directed every episode,
Huh.
so they always had that control. Different cameras and filming techniques were used in the different eras.
Okay.
So, like in the Origin universe, which was all set in the 80s and 70s, like everything was filmed as TV would look back then.
Okay.
The most obvious one is when Tannhauser, or what's his name, H.G. Tannhauser or something.
Yeah.
When he's explaining the Schrodinger's cat, like the reason that looks like 80s television, you're like, if you pay attention, everything set in his time looks like that. And then there were things with the scars on people's faces would change sides. Like, you know, because the Unknown they all had that hair lip thing going on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you notice, those change sides depending on what universe they're coming in from or whatever.
Huh.
I didn't notice it until I watched a video that, like, these are the things you didn't notice in the dark. This is how obsessed with detail the people who made this were. And so they always did something to make it, you know,
Yeah. Was that the...
stood out.
Because I don't think that's something I picked on until later, but like the Adam and so they kind of, where it's like Jonas's universe and Martha's universe, like in their respective universes, but they end up living in the same house depending on which universe they're in. It's like the same house.
Yeah,
which I didn't pick up on at first.
Yeah, same house, different universes, and at different times.
Yeah.
And what else was different? Oh, in the Origin universe, at the end when they actually destroy the two branch universes, there's no nuclear power plant in Wyndon. That was always in the background behind the bus stop, because a lot of things happen at the bus stop.
Yeah.
Okay, if you notice, there's no nuclear power plant there because the Unknown never threatened the mayor
Yeah.
to build it. So it's like, oh, that's a little detail like no one would have noticed. I mean, crazy people might have.
Yeah.
Such place as Wyndon either. It's fictional.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, and there's crazy incestuous stuff, of course.
Yeah, weird temporal incest.
You know, Jonas, like he just has to. He can't go on. He can't live without loving his aunt.
Yeah.
And then there's the one lady. She goes back to the 50s, and she like goes down on her grandma or great grandma. Like she starts her lesbian relationship with her great grandma. Like that was fucking weird. Which I didn't know about that until I looked up the family tree of people. I didn't know that was like way more crazy than what was appearing.
Well, there were people that were their own grandparents and stuff.
Charlotte. Like Charlotte was what? Charlotte was her
own grandmother, I think.
Her mom is her daughter.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what the fuck? I kind of liked and hated that bit where Jonas is trying to kill himself, and they're just like, "No, time won't allow you to do that."
Gun always clicks.
Yeah. Which that was kind of interesting at first, but then it really didn't make sense for this series. It's like, oh, now you're gonna pull the punch, like you can't kill yourself. So then why are you worried about anything? But I didn't like the idea that like time had its own conscience, and it was like
time was actually doing something on its own. It's like, wait a minute.
But I got I had an idea for like that'd make for a great like new Final Destination movie, like a reverse Final Destination. Like people aren't being killed through like weird Rube Goldberg traps. It's somebody trying to kill themselves and the universe won't let them. It comes like a really elaborate way someone's trying to kill themselves for some reason to save the universe, but death won't let them.
Yeah, like they go to hang themselves and the rope always breaks.
Yeah.
And they jump off like a freeway overpass and they always hit the car right where it just bounces them out of the way. But it causes a pile up and kills 70 other people. Then they have to bear the burden of that. Yeah. I like the end of this, the very end. Speaking of just dark, And I know
That was super sad.
that was and very German.
Yeah.
I like how because the one lady and I can't remember the name, but they're sitting around at dinner in the Origin universe in our time, so it's everything.
Well, we should say what happens before that. Like,
Okay.
so Jonas and Martha find out that they have to stop the Prime Universe time travel from the wormhole, the black hole opening up beneath the city.
Yep.
Because that's how like they're able to time travel by just like climbing into the caves. Is because when he in the Prime Universe, when he created the time machine, it created a wormhole underneath the city, and so that's why you can time travel by just crawling in the caves because there's a wormhole down there.
Yeah.
And you can also time travel by these weird, elaborate devices, that look cool.
Which didn't. Yeah. Very steampunk looking. Yeah.
And there used to be there used to be a pretty hard rule that you can only travel 33 years forward or backwards, and then and around season 2 or season 3, like they can just go to any time. It's not a problem anymore. They figured that out or something.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. They had to like. How do we complete this? Oh yeah.
So Jonas and Martha like show up at the Prime Universe to stop the wormhole from being created, and when they stop it, and they go and stop. They stop the car wreck of his son, right?
Sonia and Merrick. Yeah.
And so when they do that, he never creates time travel.
Right.
And they do that, and then they just like the Avengers, which one is it? Not Endgame. It was the Infinity War. When everyone just starts turning to dust.
Yeah.
That's what happens to Jonas and Martha. And then they start going to everything. The chain reaction of like these people's existence gets wiped out, and you realize it's pretty much every main character in the show
Yep.
is dead. They're gone forever. And like, oh, I didn't realize how many people were affected by this or existence was determined by this, and they're just all gone. All the main characters are gone.
Yep. The only people left are the Tannhaus family, who Charlotte is their baby, by the way.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Woolers, and then you've got the guy who
The eye patch guy and the one arm guy.
yeah, those guys. That guy I like in different universes, he's got an eye missing, and then the other universe he's got both eyes, but his arm's missing, and no one ever explains. It's just like this.
Well, I think it must be German humor or something, because he always comes to a point where he's going to try to explain why he's missing an eye or an arm, and he tries to explain it, but then he never gets to, because something always interrupts his. Because he says it's embarrassing, but he's like starting to tell a story, and then something always interrupts it. Even in this one, where he's not missing an eye or an arm, but he just has like something hit him in the face.
Yeah, he's accident prone.
Yeah.
So who else is left? Oh, the guy who initially built the power plant. His daughter, who died of breast cancer, or no, his daughter, who was running the plant in the 80s, and then her daughter, who apparently hadn't died of breast cancer in the Origin world. Those are the only people left out of all these characters.
Yeah. And these are pretty much, most of them are side characters, except for, was it Nielsen? She was married to the cop that was like sleeping with everybody.
Oh, Katerina?
Yeah. She's probably like the most major character out of this group that's left.
Yeah. And then Hannah, because she.
Oh yeah, and because she's what's she?
She's eternally cheating with somebody's spouse.
Yeah.
And but now she's married to the guy who's always missing an eye or an arm.
And you had Charlotte's husband is now with the transgendered prostitute, or maybe they're not
Transgendered?
Huh?
I thought she was just a prostitute.
Oh, I think she's transgendered.
Oh, okay, I couldn't tell, but yeah. Yeah, Peter, what's his last name? Doppler?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's with her, and he's happy because his wife never existed. So, yeah, there's not very many people left at the end of Dark.
And so, like, the only thing that that serves as a memory is like there's like a sense of deja vu throughout the series where they'll see something and like, do I remember this? And like, you know, because of all these weird events, there's multiple versions of them. She looks at a raincoat, which is a yellow raincoat, which is iconic throughout the series.
Yeah.
And she has a sense of deja vu, and that's kind of like the only fleeting memory of all the 3 seasons that we served through. That's the only thing that's left is a fleeting memory of deja vu. And then she's pregnant, and she decides she's going to name her kid Jonas.
Well, but I just like it how it's like, okay, all this stuff has happened. All these people have died. The universe was saved. There's no apocalypse event. And then they're at this dinner party and the power goes out. And like you say, yeah, she's like, I had a dream last night. The world ended. And these people were ostensibly happy. And this is the happy ending.
Yeah.
Sitting in the dark, just a bunch of dour Germans. Like, I had a dream the world ended. It's like, oh, tell me about that. It's like, oh, yeah, this is okay. This is a cultural thing I'm seeing right here. And then the lights come back on and everyone's happy for a little bit. And then cut to the, credits. And it's like, well, that was dark. But yeah, I mean, it's way more complicated than what we're saying. It's very worth watching. It's very well done.
Well, we say complicated, but it's also like not that complicated.
You can watch it. You don't need to like do.
I remember seeing a review that made me laugh because they're trying to prepare people. They like the show, but they're trying to prepare people. Like, it's German. It's more intelligent than American television, so you have to really pay attention to understand this. And like, no, it's stupid time travel. Like, they maybe pay attention to more things, but it's still like, hey, we're gonna have this random event happen and explain it later. Like when the second Marta shows up when she's dead in the house, like, they explain it, but at that time there's no explanation for it. It's just like, that's crazy. The end of season 2.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna bring like I thought it was gonna be like multiverse stuff at the end of series 2.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is. There's 2. There's not beyond. There's only 2. The multiverse as in there's 2, or I guess 3 universes.
Yeah. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But that's what I thought it was going to be, and it sort of was. And then, but yeah, I mean, you can watch. This is a very approachable show. You can watch.
It's more about the drama and less about the like technical things that's going on. But
yeah,
but I mean, if you're really paying attention to stuff, it helps like oh, this is why this is important, because sometimes you will get lost at some point. But like if you go back. Or just read a wiki article. It's like, oh fuck, that's what was going on there. Because sometimes you'll get like, because the cast grows, not necessarily like in terms of people, but in terms of like the alternate versions of themselves.
Yeah, some people have bangs, some people have scars, some people wear their hair differently. And there's multiple time frames, but you always. Even in the multiple time frames, you know right where you are, because the apocalypse world looks a certain way, the 50s look a certain way, the 80s look a certain way.
Yeah.
Current time just looks like where we live now, so it's not. Yeah, this is very approachable. Don't let people bullshit you. No one can understand it. It's like, no, that's not.
Yeah, I think I picked up there was a transition they bring into season 3 where like it like goes like, and it's like the thing kind of gets sucked into the middle, and that's when it's like transitioning between different worlds.
Yeah,
there's like very specific transitions when it's transitioning from either time or world. So there's like those clues there if you look for it.
Yeah. But yeah, sit down, watch it. I mean, I built tanks and armor while I was watching the show, and we never had to rewind once. Because a lot of it is like, why is this happening? Like, you're not going to know. Going back is not going to help you know. You have to wait for it to be revealed.
There'll be an info dump. Every 45 minutes there'll be an info dump to let you know where you are and where everything stands.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition here, but it all kind of like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's.
I'm trying to remember some of the song choices. There was some song choices I was surprised, like, oh, they got the rights of this. Like, I mean, almost all the '80s stuff, but like, I don't know, that seemed okay. But there's some other stuff later on where it's like more modern music. It's like, I can't remember it right now.
They had a different soundtrack too. In America, the Netflix US release has slightly different soundtrack.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, I heard that it was a little more, because a lot of it was like German like synthwave 80s. Like that was a majority of the songs that we're all familiar with because they were hit songs all over the world, but some of them were a little more obscure. But yeah, there was some American song or some English language songs that just got put into the U.S. release because they basically said the same thing. It conveyed the same message. It was just okay. Because yeah, this show loves its song interludes, where it's just a lot of like music playing and cameras focusing in on different characters and different spaces, and then the story starts again.
Yeah.
They do that about every 2 episodes. They'll have like, we're going to have a somber musical interlude where we're going to reflect on what these people have done and what they're doing, which is another good timekeeping.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they have that moment occurs like at the same whenever they do it, it occurs at the same point in every episode, which is like basically 15 minutes before the show ends.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some consistent tent poles here where you can keep following. But yeah, this was it was a surprise. I started watching it on a lark, and I was like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of cool. And I was satisfied with the end. Sometimes with stuff like this, the end can be terrible. Hope you're listening, Lost. But in this case, it was like,
I mean, this is 3 seasons, so they kind of got it. Like, if they did more than 3 seasons, like if they did 5 seasons of this, it would be way too complicated.
Well, that's the problem we have now in TV. I think with a lot of things is they're doing like, let's get an extra season. It's like, no, let's 3 and done.
Well, I believe maybe the model is changing, but the model used to be, like television contracts are for 7 years.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of things rotate around 7 seasons, or like a character will leave after the 7 seasons because their contract's up and they're going to another show.
Yeah.
Like I think that happened with X-Files, and it happens a lot of places. And because I think like once you hit, I think 7 seasons, technically 6 seasons. Like the syndication money is, and that probably works different now. It used to be like you want to shoot 100 episodes of a show because then you get syndication money. But to get syndication money, you have to have at least 100 episodes.
Oh, okay. Okay, that might be. Yeah, I don't know.
But like that doesn't really, that necessarily doesn't seem to be a thing anymore, because how many shows are like, you know, here's a high cable drama that only has 11 episodes in a season, so it doesn't seem like they're concerned with that anymore, the syndication stuff. But
yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the model. Also seems like actors work a lot more across different things.
Yeah.
Like they shoot all this stuff at one point and wrap, and then this guy's doing something else, and then that second season.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, he's way over here. It's like, well, they shot that a year ago. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like these 11 episode television shows, like it's probably like I'm not sure how long it takes them to shoot them, but maybe like, you know, that's 3 months of the actor's work, and then like now you can go do your Hollywood movie and then get back to something else, and like, oh no, now we're up for season 2, and it's like done during their off time or whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this was about the right amount. This is the right amount of dark.
Yeah.
Because any more than this, I mean, you'd be padding the fuck out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's already getting too complicated.
Yeah, it's getting a little thick, and then they introduced the tangent universes. Like I said, the season 3 they made that like that's like the center around the story that rotates around now. But the good thing is, like I said, they hit the gas. This seemed like the shortest season of Dark because so many things were happening.
I did like that one episode where it was basically just like all the moments in between, because they aren't at the 33-year gaps.
Yeah.
And they just like, this is what happened in between, because you never get to see it. Because the show technically is always moving forward.
Yeah.
And even though people are going back 33 years and forward 33 years, like there's always one person, like it's all like, you know, it all happens within like 3 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, they're never like not aging or growing as characters. They're just traveling through different points. But as far as they're concerned, it's like, well, this time is passing normally.
Yeah.
I'm just moving around within it. And then like something happens. That's what happened to Adam, old Adam. Why he looked like he was a burn victim, because it was too much time travel. They briefly explained that and then never, because one person finally asked, why does this guy look this way? It's like, oh, we travel through time too much. He's like, oh.
Well, there's that part where he's building the time machines, and you know, after they explain that concept where he basically time is protecting him, he gets really like, he gets really like loose and wild with safety procedures and dealing with lightning or like electricity, and he just like goes and grabs the electrical things that fry his skin, but it doesn't kill him.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was something related to that, but it's just like, no, it was just to establish that he was the oldest version of himself.
Yeah.
Makes him look very different, and you don't know that that's the oldest version of him in season 1, or season 2. When did they reveal that he's?
I think season 2.
Season 2, okay, but yeah, you don't know that initially.
I think like season 2 is where I start introducing like those like weird houses and the organizations.
Yeah, Sic Mundus.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The other one, I forget what it is.
Martha's or Eva's thing.
Yeah, it's weird how he had the symbol right for the branch universes, but didn't know it. It's like that's always what this symbol meant, is there was 3 universes, Origin, A, and B, and
Oh.
that was the Sic Mundus symbol, but he never realized that. So he thought you could just break the chain
Huh.
if enough people died. And Martha wanted to perpetuate the chain because she thought that we could get this right eventually, and then they come together and realize in the end, no, we have to destroy these universes because it's not right. Because everyone's unhappy. These aren't happy universes. So anyway, Dark, check it out. It's a lot more complicated than we're saying, but that's because you have to do the work. If we were just doing a summary podcast, I'd just read the scripts that we read.
And then Marta finds the medal in the sand.
The end.
I like the part, or actually I don't like the part of it. That's like sad where she's like trying to break her old husband out of the thing in the 80s, and then her mom ends up killing her and like
Yeah.
dumping her in the in the
Her
pond.
mom was always a violent bitch to her as a teenager in the 80s. Because she always seemed like an exceptionally violent person for a high school principal. Because remember, she would just attack people, start throwing haymakers, like the lady who was cheating on her husband. The other, whatever, I can't remember. But yeah, like the high school principal's just out there duking it out. And then you see how she was raised and how her mom was just this violent, crazy person too. And it's like, oh, okay, this is why she just punches people and stuff. That's just how she was raised.
But I also felt like, like, when did she win that fight against her mom? But maybe because she knows it's her mom, and then she doesn't know who the fuck she is, that she like lets her guard down and loses the fight.
Well, she didn't really lose the fight. She just turned her back and then just rose back up and crushed her skull with a rock. And just threw her in the lake because you could kill people in the lake in the 80s and get away with it. Science.
And she was time traveling anyway, so.
Yeah, whose body would they find? Like, how do we identify this body? Because then her mom goes home and sees her as a teenager and beats the shit out of her again. Yeah, these are great, happy times. Happy times in Winden. I watched a Netflix original movie this week.
Yes.
Clive Owen film Anon.
Yep.
Which is a British film, which is all style over substance.
Well, I mean, this movie's in it's really in the style of the writer-director. It's what he does.
Yeah.
This is the guy that wrote Gattaca. He didn't direct Gattaca, but he wrote Gattaca.
Okay, so that explains the like the 70s kind of the obsession with 70s cars and
Yeah, probably. Well,
old.
He also wrote and directed that. You remember that movie In Time?
Yeah.
He wrote and directed that one too.
Oh, okay.
Where it's basically like he. I mean, to be simplistic, this just seems like a long episode of a long Dark Mirror episode.
Yeah.
But that's being reductive. I mean, there's actually a Dark Mirror episode about this stuff. I think there's multiple ones, but this has a different kind of tilt to it. And I thought
this guy did Lord of War too. That was a good movie. Okay.
He's I don't know. I remember seeing I never watched that Just Time or In Time movie because I saw the trailer and I thought it looked brilliant, but I heard so many bad things about it. I've just never like bothered to watch it. But there's just so many things in that trailer. I was like, that's a cool idea. That's a cool idea. But apparently it just never comes together. I also think Amanda Seyfried is also in that. So he's worked with her before.
Oh, okay.
And there's also like, kind of Strange Days stuff with this movie, with the whole first person viewpoint stuff.
Yeah. I had a good cast, and
I mean, there's a lot of things well done. I think just the editing of it makes it uneven, because every time like they go to somebody's memory, there's always that weird pause, and we got to go through the little lines and open up the file, and it's always weird.
yeah.
It always like whatever like momentum you're building, you've completely stopped it to like make this movie like you're browsing the internet.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think one of my problems with this movie is it has an interesting world, but it doesn't do any world building. You're just kind of thrown into it.
Yeah.
And you immediately understand, okay, this is like some huge surveillance state. We don't know why.
Yeah.
And
it's for the greater good, Nathan.
yeah. And nobody has any privacy because they're essentially just filming through your own eyes, and I don't know if they can read your thoughts, but
there was a thing that's like that. There was like some weird circle graph with lines.
Yeah.
But it couldn't prove your thought, but it could like try to interpret your thought.
Okay.
There was something there.
That was kind of that Westworld type graphic where it's like, these are the possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But it was like, it was like pre-crime-ish. It was like, well, we can't use it as evidence against you, but it is, it gives us a direction to look.
Yeah.
But, it's just kind of like, it's not really, and it's not elaborated on. It's just kind of there. It's like, oh, here's another wrinkle to the universe. Also, like a lot of the graphic look is very. There's a video game called Watch Dogs, which kind of has a similar concept, but the character can just look at somebody and basically like through hacking, it'll like the way it like it says who they are and their age and what their occupation is and stuff like that. Like that's what Watch Dogs does. Like that's what you do in the game.
Okay.
And this was Watch Dog predates this, so I'm pretty sure they got a lot from that. Or there's other interfaces probably did this before too in other movies, but that just reminded me of that.
Yeah, that kind of augmented reality that they swear is just around the corner, but never.
Yeah, I like the part like when the guy is committing. Well, I don't like the part that he's committing suicide, but you see like all the cool like the big like Rolex ad and stuff like that, and then he like turns all the ads off. It's like, oh no, this world just looks kind of bland.
Yeah, this world has the look of like the Matrix when they're in the artificial, or they're in the Matrix world, not the real world, but the artificial one. Has the same color hues, the same kind of weird cars, and people dress, very much like they're in the 50s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seemed to have that like that drab artificial world look to it, which that was good.
And people didn't really seem to have like very pronounced personalities.
Yeah.
That's probably on purpose, but like I like the way, because like the way people access files, they always kind of look like they're staring in the middle distance. And so like nobody's ever really like looking at each other. They're just like opening up files in their eyes or whatever.
Yeah. Which is like today's version of everyone looking down at their phone all the time.
Yeah.
So.
And there's part where like the hacker will hack into somebody's and they're basically like seeing themselves in third person, and they basically like look like they're blind because it's so disorienting that they don't know what the fuck they do, and then we bother to move out of the way when somebody's putting a gun to their head.
Yeah. Yeah, because these things are like linked into your eyes. Like these are some kind of implants that just create this layover. And so yeah, if anyone could access that, yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah, because at some point like Clivo and it's Clivo, right?
Yeah.
He just like closes his eyes and like walks around blind to try to like, because like the hacker keeps putting like fake images in his head,
Like think something's on fire, or there's stuff like that.
or he imagines there's a train there where it isn't, and then it shows up and knocks him to the side. It's like, dude, you just got hit by a train. You should probably have a broken something.
Yeah, I think something would break.
But yeah, I think it's a interesting, cool, a lot of cool concepts. It doesn't it's kind of awkward in its editing, and like I said, there's not a whole lot of personalities, but I guess that's sort of the point.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, there's just a lot in this that didn't pay off.
And ultimately, it's, the message is like, well, you better respect your privacy because no one else is. And like, yeah, no shit.
We already know that.
Like, I know we're all volunteering our privacy away for convenience. It's just gonna happen.
As long as there's money to be made.
Yeah.
As soon as there's no profit in it, it's like, yeah, privacy is a sacred value again. Which is interesting in light of some of the stuff that happened this week. They had the teleconference with the tech gods.
Yeah.
They basically screamed at him and said, "You're ruining our country." It's like, yeah, we know. I mean, they didn't say it like that, but it's just
profits.
Mark Zuckerberg looking weird, like, what? People don't like this yet? It's like, yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't know what to make of all that. It's just like Trump's gonna ban TikTok, or it's like, 'cause they say there's Chinese spyware in it. Because the Chinese company is like, is that true? I mean, probably, but.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably.
Well,
true.
I just don't know, like, if it's a Chinese company, how much it is like relaying that information back to the Chinese government.
Oh, if it's a Chinese company, it's the Chinese government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Same.
I'm just not sure how, other than like, location data or whatever, if it's sending that. But who knows what yeah.
Yeah, see, those are the questions I have because I don't know shit about computers and stuff. It's like, well, what kind of data could they be aggregating? Like, because Grayson shows me stuff that he finds where it's just people acting stupid. It's like, well, what do the Chinese think we're all dumb now? Is this what they're getting? Or are they getting?
Well, see, there's a lot of information that you can get from it without even like having a video. Like, you don't even need the video to delineate information. You can get like what are they signed up with? Like if they're somehow data mining the contact lists, like date, time, location, all that stuff. Like, that's all useful information if you have some weird thing you want to do with it.
Yeah.
I remember there's a thing like with Twitter where like the CDC will like look up tweets in a specific way, and they can identify like where illnesses are in the country based on tweets.
Yeah, grandma's sick, and then some satellite like.
Well, no, they could just like search tweets during a specific time frame.
Yeah, like I said, I don't understand how a lot of that stuff. I mean, I've watched some things and read some things because I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't read anything compelling or that made sense to me. It's like essentially what they're worried about is this stuff. It's not what TikTok itself does. It's what is like backed into it that they found. It's like, oh, if someone walks into an army base in America with this on their phone, like, and it hooks into their Wi-Fi, like it could like put spyware in our military stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think they've probably already done that in a different way. But it's like, and I'm sure we've done the same thing to them. That's the thing, is America's always holding up this giant dick card. It's like, well, we're the one who invented doing this shit to people. So.
But I mean, like, the military has had to deal with that stuff with just Facebook before, where people like post up like something in Facebook and it's like, hey, I'm deploying here. It's like, you fucking dipshit.
Yeah.
Anybody can see that.
Here they come.
And that's where you get like all the robo hookers on Facebook. Like, if they get wind that you're in the military, it's like, be my friend. Like, no.
I am Samantha. I friend. I like all the people. It's something weird. Like, I get emails threatening me to because my accounts are about to be locked out somewhere, and it's all in broken English, and it's like, yeah, I'm somehow sure Amazon could get it together and write me a letter, not in pidgin English, so I'm just gonna delete this one. Thanks. But yeah, so yeah, that all ties into Anons, because people are just giving up their privacy for reasons. Well, yeah, I mean, what's privacy worth? I mean, it's one of those things too. Like, some people willingly just put all their information out there because they're like, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't have to worry about anything. And like, yeah, yet. wait till the social climate changes in this country. What happens if, the election's not going right, and the Trump secret police suddenly, become brown shirts, and it's like he's president for life. Think of everything you put about him on social media, which I don't think is going to happen, but it could.
Hey, it's 2020. It can only get worse, right?
Yeah, I don't know anymore. I used to think it was funny. I put this thing on Facebook the other day. Remember that scene in that movie Cabin in the Woods, where they have all the different monsters and potential things that are going on like a big chart? People always put something underneath there, and it's like, okay, who picked mysterious Chinese seeds for August? Because supposedly those seeds were being mailed to people randomly with China.
Oh yeah.
And that's somebody explained what that was.
Yeah, that's some weird like drug thing.
No, it's an order fulfillment scam for Amazon.
Oh, okay.
People trying to start Amazon businesses, and they randomly mail shit to people to make it look like they've fulfilled orders as an independent business. But the reason they put seeds and shit in there is if you mail shit that, like, it's obviously an empty package, they can tell by weight.
Yeah.
They say it's like a necklace or something, so they'll put some garbage in there so it looks like it's the same weight, and just randomly send it to people so you can get it. It's some third world thing. Yeah,
they're getting their ratings up so that like you won't be suspicious of it, because like, look at it, like our successful
99% positive feedbacks from non-existent customers.
No, I was thinking of another thing. There was a thing where like people are getting random shit in the mail, but it was like some skeezy friend of theirs was getting like basically drug paraphernalia mailed to their friend's house.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Hey, add your bongs here. Yeah, how come? Yeah, no one can send a nice, like, a new iPhone. It's like, how come that never randomly shows up? Or it'd probably be filled with plastic explosives or something. Yeah, never get anything nice. Bar of gold. It's a fulfillment scam that went wrong. No, don't mail the gold. Yeah, that's all that weird shit. Whatever that means.
Oh yeah, should we talk about Blue Thunder while we remember that movie?
Oh yeah.
Wait, first I got. So, have you heard of the Steven Soderbergh cut of Raiders of the Lost Ark?
No, I haven't. I saw that in the notes. I didn't follow up on it. What is that?
So he was actually he took Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's kind of just a thing to. He wanted to like show off like the contrast lighting and how well it was lit, and he put it in black and white. He took out all the audio, and it's all mixed with Nine Inch Nails music, but more of the Trent Reznor kind of Ghosts and stuff from The Social Network, like that kind of music.
Okay.
So it's just Raiders of the Lost Ark with Trent Reznor music in black and white and no audio. And it's kind of interesting.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
I just kind of went around. I just kind of scrubbed through it. I didn't like watch it from front to back, but it's like you see the cinematography like way different than you remember it. Like it's really like it's quite striking in how it's shot, because it was shot to kind of like parallel the serials that they were basing this stuff on, which all that stuff was in black and white.
Okay.
So like the director of photography shot, even though in color, he shot with high contrast. So the movie still works in black and white because of how he shot the movie.
Oh, okay.
So it's a really interesting look of like cinematography and just kind of a lot of things like now that you take the dialogues out and there's like a lot more things that like I noticed this time around, which I was because I wasn't looking for it because I was just it's fun, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now I notice more things when it's in black and white and has Trent Reznor music behind it.
Huh.
So yeah, give that. I put a link in the show notes to get to it if it's up still because it was down for like a day, but I think it's back up again.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because, but yeah, Blue Thunder,
Yes.
a movie I watched because it was a reference in a video game.
This is a John Badham film. This was right before War Games.
Yeah, well, it was shot before it, but it ended up getting released in the same year as War Games.
Oh, okay. I thought this came.
This did come first. It was shot, but it was on the shelf for like 3 years and then released at the same year as War Games. I'm not sure if this got released like just before War Games or if they got released it after War Games. I don't know. But yeah, this is basically like a cool helicopter movie.
Yeah. This was like this was
So, somebody saw the Apache and they're like, we should make a movie about that. It's like, yeah, but we can't get permission to use an Apache. And it's like, well, just bolt some shit onto a helicopter.
yeah. It's like Airwolf did that.
Yeah.
I think this movie was what made Airwolf cool.
Yeah. This came out before Airwolf, and I believe they actually used the helicopter in Airwolf. Like, not as the main helicopter, but as like bad guy helicopters.
Yeah, I could see that.
I never actually seen Airwolf. I think the MacGyver guy worked on it. No, it was the Quantum Leap guy worked on Airwolf.
Oh, okay. Did he? Yeah, okay. I could see that.
I mean, like not Scott Bakula, but just the showrunner for Quantum Leap.
Yeah, no, I could see how that would be related. I knew what you meant.
I never actually, but like I said, I've never actually seen Airwolf. Was that a cool one?
It was an 80s.
When was it 80s? Okay, yeah.
Had kind of a cool theme and very simple. I always ended up with the helicopter like fighting, F-18s.
Was that just was that post or simultaneous with like Knight Rider?
I think it was the same production company as I remember.
Huh.
So it was probably simultaneous.
Okay.
Should look that up, but it seemed to have the similar production values and looks.
Yeah.
I think even some actor crossover. So, not the main characters, but the side characters.
But yeah, this is just a movie about helicopter police.
Yeah.
And then they have a cool helicopter, and then there's just weird, like, political. I guess not political. It's like there's some stuff where it's like this is ahead of the time, and then there's also stuff that's just like immediately problematic. But it's an old movie, so what do you expect?
Yeah, it's a movie from 1983.
You got
There was a Blue Thunder TV series.
yeah.
Came right after. I didn't know about that. Okay. Don't remember that one. But anyway, yeah, this helicopter can basically... It's a police helicopter in Los Angeles. And Roy Schreiber...
What you start off with is just a normal helicopter. You don't get to the super helicopter till later. But
Yeah.
Roy Schneider as a Vietnam vet.
Yep.
Who's working this helicopter, and he has a watch to like try to like test his sanity.
Yeah. Yeah, because he won't talk to anyone while he's looking at his watch to prove he's not hallucinating, I think.
Yeah, it's like something like if he can recount time correctly, then he's not. Yeah, he's not hallucinating.
Yeah.
And then he has you're saying a young Daniel Stern as his like, what do they call him? It's like his spotter.
Yeah.
He's just a guy in the helicopter with literally just with fuck, I can't remember what they're called. The binoculars.
Yeah.
And he just
Yeah, they didn't have FLIR, those directional microphones and stuff that they do now. So yeah, he was just basically using like binoculars at night and a searchlight.
yeah.
They had a bright searchlight.
And then they spend like half an hour looking at a lady doing nude yoga.
Yeah.
That was just weird and out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, this is an R-rated movie.
Yep.
And then they were like helping the police like track down some hooligans. And then like inadvertently like or stumble upon the main sort of like some political figure gets killed, but they don't really know what they're looking
City
at the time.
council person
Yeah.
gets killed, and it's like the main character Frank Murphy's the main character in this.
And there's some,
more
and there's
behind it, yeah.
and there's like weird stuff where it's like weirdly progressive, but also like problematic because it's like immediately have like just black people and Latinos are the criminals, and but
Yeah.
then there's like a news report like saying like, oh, the white people are just blaming all this on black and Latinos. That's not the real problem. It's like, huh? Well, they're not showing that, but at least they're presenting the idea.
Yeah, they're mentioning it briefly. Or they shoot scenes. That,
And then but was it? There's supposed to be the Olympics in the LA, so they want to get this helicopter that has all these sensors on it. They show off the helicopter as basically like more of an offensive weapon thing, where like, look, it can, it can shoot one guy and a busload of people, but it doesn't really do that well. It just kind of shoots everybody in the bus.
yeah.
But it also has like connections to the internet that doesn't necessarily exist quite as full at this time. But like as it's presented in the movie, it can just like pull up anybody's information. It can like see through walls, and it has directional microphones.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that Blue Thunder does is like common in police helicopters now.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't shoot missiles and have damage. Not yet. But yeah, they can see through walls and they're connected to the internet.
Although like there is a little thing, a blurb at the front of the movie that says like all the technology in this movie actually exists, just maybe not to the technical quality degree at which it's depicted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, all the stuff in RoboCop exists today. We can't like power it and make it move around like that.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's meant to be a cool looking helicopter in kind of a medium budget movie.
Yeah.
It's actually a helicopter called an Aeropostale Gazelle, which is like a European military attack helicopter. Not like an Apache.
Yeah.
But it's more like a light machine gun type, and they just cladded it up with armor. I think it's still in a museum or something.
Huh.
It still exists.
Yeah, I heard like they had to like rebalance the helicopter because they put so much shit on the front end of it. They had to like put weight in the back just to balance it correctly.
Yeah, it was mostly wood mock-ups and stuff, and yeah.
This also seemed to be before that Twilight Zone incident where. Because they weren't shy about helicopters in this thing. They're doing a lot of crazy shit.
We're doing dangerous shit. Yeah.
I also heard Malcolm McDowell was terrified of flying. So, like, if you see scenes in the movie where he's like afraid in the helicopter, it's just genuine fear.
Yeah, he's not acting there, folks. Definitely afraid.
This is the funny thing in that video game. It presumed that Malcolm McDowell's best roles were one, cat people, and this movie.
Okay, that's interesting. Just no Clockwork Orange.
Nope.
Okay.
This and Blue Thunder, or Cat People and Blue Thunder, which like Malcolm McDowell's fine in this movie, but there's like I wouldn't say this is one of his elevated performances, but. It got me to see the movie. That bold claim made me see the movie. It's just it's just kind of a, fun, mostly forgettable, fun action. It's probably smarter than the typical '80s action movie, but it's still ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's sort of a message movie, but you're not really paying attention to that message because there's just crazy shit, cool stuff going on.
Yeah, just cool tech.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, you could say, like, War Games is kind of the same movie.
Yeah, kind of.
Like, here's this cool tech, and if it gets out of hand, it's the end of the world.
all this technology is real. Well, except for the thinking computers, and like the most benign technology in war games is like the real dangerous. You know, the stuff we already have is the horrifying stuff.
Yeah. So that was on the list, and I thought we could, like, oh, you like when I put it on the list, you're like, oh, Blue Thunder. So like, what's your history with this movie?
Oh, it's just one of those movies you watched a lot in the '80s.
Okay.
Because it just kind of looked cool, and it was an action movie, and you know, of course, the underlying story I didn't care about. It was like just cool looking helicopter.
I'm guessing you saw it like as a rerun on like cable or something.
HBO or something.
Oh, okay. So you got to see the nude. You got to see the
Yeah, a lot
naked
of the
yoga
movies I
lady.
watched from the '80s that I fondly remember. It's like, oh, I remember this chick. She looks like now, you know, it's like 40 years later almost. But yeah, that's yeah, I remember this movie being good, and it was. I mean, you know, Roy Schneider's someone who's like, you always like his performance, but it's like, oh, who was that guy? And it's like, yeah, this guy. Because he always acts exactly the same. Whatever character he's playing, it's always the same guy.
Yeah.
But it's fun to watch him.
And Daniel Stern not being a criminal.
And a 15-year-old Daniel Stern.
Just kind of a plucky, enthusiastic guy. Like,
Yeah.
he gets,
The naive partner.
just gets unceremoniously, like, was he ran over by a car while his hands are cuffed behind his back?
I thought he got thrown out of a car, but yeah. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, no, that's right. That's right. I'm thinking something. Yeah, because he was trying to run away from the. Yeah.
It was like the weird, and the Roy Schneider has a weird relationship with his wife/girlfriend.
Yeah, I never quite understood that one. Yeah, there's a lot of things in this movie that aren't fleshed out, but I don't know if that's done deliberately or just they didn't want to take the time, because he's kind of a damaged character.
Yeah.
Like, he's never someone he's like clearly the hero. He's just like kind of the less. He's not bad.
Did you read the blurb about like what the original script was?
No,
So it was just supposed to be a script about a guy who gets in this helicopter and goes crazy. Like, think of Tread, but with a helicopter.
Oh, okay. With an attack helicopter.
Yeah, and that was the original movie. He just terrorizes a city and then is eventually killed.
Okay. Would have been interesting too. But maybe not as much of a message movie.
Yeah. Well, I guess the message would be like, look at this dangerous military shit.
We're militarizing the police.
What if it was inflicted on the population?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun one. It was a trip down memory. I mean, I probably hadn't watched that movie in 20 years, so it was kind of, you know, just definitely a genre of 80s action.
Yeah.
What was the one with there was another one kind of like similar, it was a little darker though. What was it? It was the one Runaway, one with Tom
Oh
Selleck.
yeah, the Michael Crichton one.
Yeah, which is actually like a really dark movie if you pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It's, you know, people are murdered horribly almost constantly. But it's shot and filmed in that kind of plucky 80s action motif.
Yeah.
Where you don't pay attention to, like, oh yeah, heat-seeking bullets just blow people in half, and robots that inject you with acid and then explode. It's like, well, can it do one or the other? It's got to do both. And then a really bad guy that's like holding a knife to a kid's throat. I'm like, oh, this guy's truly awful. But they use all like 80s cars, and it's like it's just like a slightly more advanced world. Like, it's more advanced than the world we live in now.
Yeah.
But like, police cars are Ford Tempos that fire lasers off the top of them.
Like, you remember like how the near future world in Interstellar is? It's like you take that world and then but like bolt a bunch of 80s shit onto it, and that's what Runaway is.
Oh, yeah.
Like a less cool Interstellar.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember I rewatched Runaway a while back, and it's like, oh, I forgot how dark and bleak this movie was, but still kind of weirdly like, because that's Magnum PI, and
yeah, it seemed like a movie like ahead of its time, and then I think eventually just anime movies pretty much covered it better because they could just like have fluid moving giant robots that look cooler than what you could produce actually.
Yeah, because they had like a lot of box with wheels type robots.
Yeah.
The one running around holding a 357 Magnum was scary. 'Cause you could only see it in the shadows. It's just a robot hand on this giant gun that was moving in a jerky way. It's like, it already killed like 3 people. It's like, that's kind of fucked up. But yeah, this is another. I consider this a movie in that vein where it's like, oh, it seems kind of silly, and it is, but it's also like a lot darker, and there is messages in there.
Yeah.
We just kind of remember him as like, oh, this is quirky. A lot of Blue Thunder shot in Detroit too.
Huh.
Well, where him and Malcolm McDowell were having the fight in the end
Yeah.
when he's been shot up pretty good and he's still flying the helicopter. A lot of it was shot in Detroit
Huh.
because those were abandoned buildings, so you could bank helicopter
Okay. Yeah.
very low and nobody's gonna. It's like, oh, he crashed into the abandoned building. Oh no.
Because it's supposed to take place in L.A., isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but those places where they're flying under arches and
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
Packard plant in Detroit.
Yeah, I remember the scene where he's like trying to like juke him out, and like they like fly around a building, and they almost like slam into each other, and they kind of like fly back. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, you guys don't give a shit about safety. Just do it so it looks cool.
Well, some of that stuff's sped up too. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
being more dangerous than it is. But yeah, it was. You wouldn't see that today. Well, it'd be CG today.
or it'd be shot separately and combined later.
Yeah, but not back then.
Like so that movie was shot in the 80s, like 1980, and I forget when they shot Twilight Zone, but
It was in 83, 84?
no, it was released in 83, but it was actually shot in 1980.
No, I mean Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I think that was like 84 or something like that.
Let me look that up.
Oh yeah, I remember the other trivia I saw is that the reason Roy Schneider did this movie is because it would keep him away from Jaws 3D.
Oh, okay, good for him.
I think it was Jaws 3D or Jaws 4. I forget. He's not in either of those, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, Twilight Zone the movie's 83, so it was probably shot in like 82. And I don't know how much of a production delay there was because they killed people.
Well, it was like 4 different productions. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember like that was
Have you ever seen that described, like the investigation with the photos and stuff?
I haven't seen that. I've heard it, like because it just like it's
Decapitated.
I got there's 3 people decapitated and 2 children.
Yeah, it was horrible. Well, I think the children drowned.
Oh.
I don't know. I remember I watched a documentary on it, and it was like, oh, this is more. I thought a helicopter crashed and people died, and just as a result directly of the crash that were in the helicopter. I didn't realize it landed on people, chopped them up, and then killed the people inside. And it was like, Jesus, what the hell were they doing? And you see the scene, and it doesn't look that dangerous like before the crash. It's like, yeah, I've seen this scene in many movies. Helicopters are trying to rescue people in water or something. This one went wrong. John Landis almost went to prison.
Yep.
Like it was real touch and go. Because I guess a lot of things were done like, there's a reason we don't do this, and you guys are just going to go ahead and do this. Okay, well, this is why we don't do this.
Yeah. After that, Hollywood got really particular about what they were doing with helicopters after that movie.
Helicopters are not safe. I have very limited experiences with helicopters, mainly with medevac flights taking off. And when something, 300 feet away can shake your car violently because it's taking off, it's like, that's probably not a stable thing to do anything with. It's like, you got to be nimble. Let the Army do stuff like that. They got the money. So those Osprey things still amaze me when you see those like flying around. It's like, that just looks dangerous.
It is. Well, well, I don't know. There's debates about that, but I'm not sure.
They say it's gotten a lot, like the technology has caught up with the design, so that transitional system's working a lot better than it ever did.
Yeah, because that's where the danger is when it transitions. Because
Yeah.
I remember there was like some order that went out, but I think it was particularly in like desert areas where it could only be in hover mode, like it couldn't be in airplane mode.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you're just like defeating the purpose of the fucking thing.
Have you ever seen those things fold up for storage? And that's wild.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, wow, how did they design? Well, okay. Then you look at what that program costs, and you're like, well, shit, that thing might as well be a fucking transformer. I want that thing to turn into a full robot and kill our enemies.
That was like one of the Marine Corps' biggest swings ever, because nobody ever makes something from the Marine Corps because they don't want to spend money on it, and that thing was largely
$35 billion before a prototype was introduced. I think the only thing more expensive was the F-35.
Yeah.
But yeah, they say that's getting better, and they're also looking at their new ones that are coming out. They're looking at one that just has jet engines, which that sounds wild.
Well, maybe the Marine Corps got rid of their tanks, so they don't have tanks anymore. So
Just too expensive to maintain them.
yeah, well, and also like for the wars we're fighting, and we're not fighting anybody with tanks.
Oh, so they're just gonna go to armored personnel type vehicles.
Yeah, well, it's about. Well, I mean, that's why you have like, you have amphibious assault vehicles. You got like VTOLs and stuff like that to get people in places faster, because that's what really changes things in a war, is like getting people in places faster.
Yeah.
Especially if you're fighting an enemy that doesn't have like or if they do have a standing army, you can defeat all its vehicles in the first 3 days of the war. It's like now you're just fighting people.
Yeah, and some of these armies are just like, it's like, well, they might have uniforms, but they're really just groups of armed men. It's like, that's not really an effective.
But also, like, you think about, like, if you're doing a combined force effort, well, you're just going to let the army, because they have all the tanks and everything.
Yeah.
It's like what you want the Marine Corps to do is react to something first and fast, so that's what they're focusing on.
Yeah, the army has all the, like, elaborate equipment. The Paladin siege tank or whatever, just crazy shit. Have you heard about the new thing, the scramjet artillery they're playing around with?
No.
It's an artillery shell you fire, and it's like a sabot, and it's like an artillery shell, and then it spins free, and this thing's got a directional scramjet in it. And you just like fire the artillery shell and then direct it to where you want it to go within a certain arc. But still it's like basically directed artillery, because it's a hell of a lot cheaper than a missile.
Yeah.
But you just fire it in the general direction and then guide it in, and it just slams into the target. I don't know how close this is to being reality. I read about that and I was like, that's an interesting idea.
I can't remember if it was the British or the Germans. They have the Crusader artillery tank.
No, that's us.
Oh, it's us? Okay.
Call it the Paladin now, because they thought the Crusader was a little on the nose when the Iraq War started.
Is it that one, or is it the German one where like it can automatically load up a shell with a different propellant, and it can like fire 3 different shells at 3 different arcs, so it arrives at the same. So the 3 different shells arrive at the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I believe the Paladin does that. I mean, I'm sure the Germans have some variation of that, but yeah, that's shit that the Paladin can do, because it just looks like a big boxy tank.
Yeah.
But the turret doesn't turn; just moves in one direction. And that was something that was from the 80s that they've been playing with. But yeah, I think a lot of the I think like what you're saying, I think ours has to be manually loaded, because we still like that. But I think the German one you're talking about, or the British one, yeah, it's just like 2 guys, and it automatically, like a computer, loads it all.
Yeah.
I don't know why we like manual. I think there's just less to go wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's I mean, the Russians have shit like that too. I mean, it's the latest new weird Russian weapon that they're trying to scare the world with 15 of. Is it the? Oh yeah, they supposedly have they're a generation beyond the Raptor now with their new Sukhoi fighter. They say it's better than the Raptor. It's like, okay, I'd like to see that. But who knows? Maybe it is.
I don't know. Like, is the Raptor, like, is it compromised by its stealth stuff? Like,
I don't. The only thing with the Raptor that I've heard is it's just they're tired of paying for it.
yeah.
And it never made it to that export market that we wanted because we wouldn't include stealth, so nobody wanted it except the British.
Yeah, because the problem is, like, to have stealth, that means you have to put the arms inside the vehicle, which means you can't have as many armaments on it.
Yeah,
And then you're just kind of, like, defeating the purpose of it. Unless it's just pure air superiority fighter.
yeah.
But they always want the multi-role fighter. So,
Well, that's what the F-35 is supposed to be.
oh,
That big multi-role that's going to replace the F-18 and basically replace everything. Like that British carrier that they just finished, like the Queen Elizabeth, the huge one. That's supposed to be all F-35s on it. So they can do air, sea, and land. It's just all stuff that when you add up the cost, it's like, who are we fighting? Alien invaders? It's like, the Chinese, with their carrier just almost sunk because a boiler exploded. We had one. We have some ship that caught fire, and it took them 4 days to put it out.
yeah.
And they don't know. Do they know why it caught fire yet? I don't remember.
I haven't heard anything. No.
Yeah, I know they're saying it's like going to cost as much to fix it as to build a new one. Shit like that. I'm like, well, okay, what are our choices here as taxpayers? What do we do? I'm still anxious to see that thing deploy its Mac cannon or whatever. The ship that has the
Oh, the railgun?
the rail gun. I mean, that probably won't work, but
I mean,
boy, if it did. I mean, that thing needs like satellites and planes because it can do over the horizon with that. Oh, that's nuts.
get a flat earther on the
You don't need over the horizon. Just dip the barrel lower. It's all Jesus will guide us. To our satanic enemies.
The Grand Turtle will guide our weapons munitions.
Yeah, I just love that that's a thing. And that I've met one of those guys in real life. But after a conversation, I figured out it's like, oh, this is all just religion. You don't really. Flat Earth is just a metaphor to get people into church. That's what it comes down. Because you immediately start to disintegrate. It's like, how does GPS work? How does all this other stuff? The arguments start to fall apart really quickly. So then it becomes faith. It's like, you can't argue with my faith. It's like, yeah, you're right. I can't disprove a negative. You've won. So, yeah. It also encourages me that that's what it is, too, because at least it's like, oh, I know the stupid that's coming my way. It's not like, I don't have to ever wonder in the back of my head, is the earth really flat? It's like, no, because they're bringing God into it as soon as you mention things like satellites and, ocean currents and stuff. I mean, even then you're talking over their heads, but yeah. Once they hear a few trigger words, it's like Jesus. It's like, oh, okay, or God. A lot of stuff's moving away from Jesus and just generically becoming God, so it has a more international appeal.
Get those Arab flat earthers.
Arabs have a lot of weird. I'm watching some YouTube channels about like the mythology of the Middle East, like what are their, angels, demons, and all that stuff. They have a lot of weird stuff, man.
Yeah.
I mean, because they've been going at it longer. Like the pre-Muslim Arab world was just like a nightmare of demons and angels and other things running around and spirits and.
Well, it also it incorporates the Christian mythology and then brings some of their own too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's modern stuff, but there's ancient stuff, and you watch that and you're like, this is where they got all the names for the Stargate TV show. this is where this stuff comes from. I thought the writers on that show just had really creative name schemes. It's like, no, it's all stuff from civilizations in the Middle East. But yeah, they have. I don't know who does, because it's all translated into English, and sometimes they get guys. Sometimes they have bots do it, which is a little flat. But then sometimes they have guys that are like from that or from that part of the world, but they're like native English speakers, and they make it sound really exciting. And they'll bring modern stuff into it. Like they had some like, did the U.S. Army fight giants in the desert of Iraq? And it's like reports say, and it's all like UFO type. It's
Yeah.
like the U.S. Army did not fight giants, because if they did, they'd definitely be talking about it. I'd want to see video of that. But yeah, they said like, yeah, these groups were fighting giants. It's like, that'd be awesome, like a tank firing a troll hunter, but in real life. The army guys firing artillery off of mountains and hitting a giant in the head. That'd be cool, but it didn't happen. But they certainly want to believe it happened. Now, when they say giants, though, they're not talking about like 400 feet tall. They mean like something like 10 foot tall.
Goliath.
Yeah, so it's like a bunch of infantrymen were killed by this thing only described as a giant. And it used primitive tools, but they had to empty whole magazines into it to kill it. And it was like, yeah, this never happened. It certainly sounds, I'm certainly enthralled with your storytelling. And then they talk about like spirits, and because they have their own evil spirits in Islam. And they're not like, it's got a kind of complicated scheme to it. Like we think of like demons and angels. Like those are our evil spirits in Christianity, roughly. But they have these things they're called the jinn, which is where the term genie comes from.
Yeah.
But they're not like fallen angels. They're not human beings. There's something in that between world that's part of their mythology, and they're either here, they're curious about people, or they're here to corrupt you. But you should never have dealings with them, because it never works out well for you. But it's like, yeah, they have all kinds of cool myths around that, and just it's actually, I think the channel's called The Mysterious Middle East. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of uneven production quality there in the stories. Sometimes you get a really good one, and sometimes you'll get something so weird, because they actually talk about like the Stargate. Like that story actually came from something they found in Iraq. It was an actual Stargate built by the people who were the aliens that visited the Mesopotamians. They had there's a whole thing there. It's like, I don't know anything about this history in this part of the world, so I'm just going to take this ride because I could actually read real books about their history, but I'm going to do this instead. I'm amused by this.
This slight sci-fi bent that I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's definitely interesting. Like I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the mysterious. But then there's like really dark stories about like, where did all the bodies in this tomb go? Or they have like massive graveyards over there. And like all the bodies disappeared out of one of them, supposedly. I mean, none of the stuff, there's like no pictures, or it's not verified, but it's like, that's a weird idea. Like the graveyard's just empty. What the hell's that all about? But yeah, that's all I got for this week.
All right.
So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
And this is Conlon. Goodbye, America.